I think I started in this role in September, so I'm still in my first 100 days. The ECI has been going for 6 years. I'd like to talk a little bit about what I've learned about ECI since I took over the role, some of the projects that we're involved in at the moment, and some of the projects I'd like to be involved with in the future. One of the things I like about ECI is it is inclusive. One of the reasons I love emergency medicine is because I've always loved team sports, and I'm really pleased to see so many people in the ED team represented at the symposium today. It's just a fabulous resonance of why I enjoy my job so much. Now here's the Ministry of Health. I love this slide. It looks balanced, functional, tidy. We've got the people in the middle doing the work, and they're supported by pillars and statewide health services, and ECI is inside the Agency for Clinical Innovation. Peter Garling made recommendations of these 5 pillars. In fact, his recommendation was it was going to be a clinical innovation agency, which would have been CIA, but that was changed very quickly to ACI. And our job is to support the function of the people in the middle who are doing all the work. We have 2 ministers, one for mental health and one for health, and surprise, surprise, we don't get on very well with mental health. We wonder why. And the New South Wales website Brad has it as the cluster minister, which I think we could do better as terminology. And the ministry at the top is ED sits in purchasing, and one of the functions of New South Wales Health Ministry is to be very specific about services that the LHDs have to provide, and ED sits in that directorate, mental health in a different directorate, there's a pattern emerging, and workforce in a different directorate. And I think this reflects what we all know, that the ministry struggles to coordinate and communicate. It's such a big organisation, there's a lot of effort going on to try and overcome it, but there are some structural problems. The reason for talking about this is it illustrates to me the importance of ECI as a voice for emergency in such a complex system. So all these different parts want to be able to talk to one group and get a coherent message. And it also is important because the communication with you informs our conversation with them. So the symposium is reflective of a much bigger conversation. I should be getting lots of, or we should be getting lots of communication from everybody in the room about what you want from emergency medicine, because this complex system is coming to us to be informed. So the ECI started as one of the pillars. Vanessa Evans is here today. She's the manager of ECI, and Sally McCarthy was the first clinical director who served her 2 terms. She had a very good vision. She recognised the problems that emergency medicine has. It's all separate little departments, difficult to communicate, very busy. And I'd commend you look at the autumn newsletter of the ECI. She really has nailed what the mission of ECI is. Anytime there's one emergency department is doing something which every other emergency department is doing, it doesn't make any sense. So if you're writing a back pain protocol in one place and everyone else is writing a similar, then let the ECI do it, put it up on the website, and then you can get on and do productive matters. It's a great idea. So we're looking for any opportunity where there are activities that everyone's doing that we could do and free up your time to do other things. She's also very clear that we should be providing clinical resources for emergency departments. Now, the big emergency departments will sort themselves out, but little emergency departments, which make up the vast majority of emergency care in New South Wales, they have a locum workforce who comes in with the Oxford Emergency Medicine edition of 2001 and wants to use it. The vision is you can say, look, when you come here, we work off protocols that are on the ECI website. So take your Oxford, use it where you go to your next job, but when you're here, please use these protocols. And John McKenzie spent most of his adult life, I think, putting all these things together. I've just put C onto our search engine and come up with a lot of protocols. This slide also shows the clinical tools, the patient fact sheets, which result in about 1,000 hits on a website every day, and some other information. What's really important about this is these aren't protocols that we've just pulled out of the air. There's a clinical advisory committee, Matthew Bragg and Kylie Stark, who are co-chairs, who review all of these things. So if there's a clinical protocol on the ECI website, it's been reviewed by a large group of emergency people, and they've said, yes, fine, we're happy with it. And here's an email that Vanessa sent out. I don't know how she does it, but every 3 years they're all sent out for review, they're updated, and this is group 5, so there's other groups floating around. A huge amount of workload going through these committees, but I think it's one of the great strengths of the ECI website that if something's up there, it's not the thought of one person, it's been through a group of emergency medicine people who've signed off on it. It's a really great achievement. And the committee structure of ECI, there's only a small group of ECI. The work that's done is done by these committees who give up of their time, spend a huge amount of resource. One of them is the ISTAC, which is meant to advise the Ministry on the direction of e-health, e-meds. Where do these hard-working electronic programs go to get clinical input? And it's been a real problem for them. It's a real problem for us, by the way, because they don't get clinical input, and the ISTAC is chaired by Naren, should be where the Ministry and the IT people say, look, can you tell us what's important? There's an executive committee which keeps the ECI focused and directed to make sure we're reflecting the views of the wider emergency medicine community, and an incident advisory committee which has put a huge amount of work into reviewing all the RCAs that come through the Ministry relating to emergency medicine. And this is one of the, like RCAs, we could talk all day about them, but a huge, if you were to total up the amount of time taken for an RCA and put a dollar value on it, and then say, what's the output? You'd be uncomfortable. So this committee looks at all the RCAs for emergency medicine and tries to see patterns and make recommendations and feed it back into the community. It's a lot of work, very valuable. It's also been able to advise, so we'll be talking a little bit later about our chest pain protocol. That protocol has been informed by the RCAs relating to chest pain in New South Wales. So we're trying very hard to take use of the huge investment of the system into the RCA process. There's a research advisory committee which is supported by a very talented researcher, Hatem, within the ECI, who's been very, very productive as well. Spent a lot of time. And one of the Crystal projects, one of the New South Wales Health Award, has been a very successful part of ECI. They've also developed the Airway Registry, again, which won a New South Wales Health Award. This is really a sign of maturity for emergency medicine. I think we've always been worried about our ability to manage airways. I wasn't supportive of this when I was Director at Prince of Wales. It was a mistake in retrospect. It's a fabulous resource which has given us a lot of information about how we can no longer have to be embarrassed about airway management because we have information from this registry. And I'd commend to you in your own places, if you're not using it, the information form is on the Airway Registry under Airway on the ECI website. You'll notice it sits under a presentation probably from John McKenzie of Airway in the International Medical Research Facility at Wanaka, done in September. I'm sure it'll be very interesting. So if you can use the research form, please use it. Nick Gorrell is a project officer at ECI, and he's been working on a nurse-delegated emergency care program, which big centres won't know about, but small centres certainly will. It's been very successful. It allows small facilities to provide care as a satellite under a larger umbrella. It's taken off, it's been fabulously successful. eQuest is a project that's being run by 2 advanced trainees within ECI, which provides for M&Ms for small facilities that can't manage it themselves. Very, very good idea. We do a teleconference, we put some cases up. We also use the RCA reports as a basis for discussion, and small facilities that can't manage. There's no point in having I don't know if you've done it, I've sat in an M&M with me and one other person and it feels silly, it's not very productive. So eQuest is an attempt for rural EDs to provide an M&M program. And ECI goes on road trips to try and support smaller facilities. So what are we involved in at the moment? I think paediatrics, providing meaningful clinical information for paediatrics is a problem. We use the sedation guidelines from Victoria, but then Queensland have put, so we have Royal Hospital in Melbourne. So there's a project that's pretty well advanced to get all the websites that we're using and to bring them into the ECI website, so you can search by adult, paediatric or neonatal. And when the website changes that the paediatric community believe is more appropriate for use, then we'll change the link behind it and try and avoid the Oxford Handbook of Paediatrics 2001 problem. In line with the fellowship training for emergency medicine is a problem. I was working this week and I heard a registrar ask someone, look, I'm going to start my training, have you got a list of websites and books? And you suddenly think, well, hold on, it's happening everywhere. Everyone's got little lists, and I've got MCQs. Hetty should be doing this, but they have problems in delivering this type of care, so one of the projects we're involved in is trying to get large facilities to give us, use us as a repository for information so that trainees aren't in this sort of cap-in-hand arrangement for where they get their direction. We're still involved in strengthening links with rural centres, which I think is where ECI should be doing most of its work. And two projects that we're very excited about, which we're going to talk about today, suspected chest pain pathway and soft collars. This has been going for a long time. The old pathway is not fit for purpose for a number of reasons. It's immensely complex. It doesn't use high-sensitive troponins. John will talk a lot further about it. The cardiology stream of ACI have been trying to do this for 5 years, and they've fought themselves to a standstill. And so ECI has come in to take over, trying to put this together. And we're hopeful that we've got a pathway. We probably have to turn the colour down a little bit, that John will talk about, and we'd like to have this out in the next couple of months. We brought a new word in, troponology. We thought that would get pinged straight away, but it seems to have survived a number of iterations through cardiology, so let's see how long troponology is going to last with us. This is a picture from the advertising company that makes soft collars. I like the lipstick and the hospital gown, the high-end hospital gown. It's never like this. I've done some terrible things with cervical stiff neck collars in my time. I'd love to go back and undo them. You know, this is really what it ends up being. And there's no evidence for it. There's no evidence that it's good. I don't know why we're doing it. There's evidence that it's bad. So I rang a couple of people, and I rang Stephen Ruff, who's a spinal surgeon at North Shore, and I said, look, what do you think if we got rid of the stiff neck collar? He said, Golden, you're an idiot. You could put a black snake around their neck. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't do anything. So I think the black snake protocol, let's get rid of them. And we've written a statement which we've shamelessly taken from Kate Curtis. She's introduced this at St George Trauma Centre in Wollongong. And we're trying to get some support for replacing stiff neck collars with soft collars that have a little yellow tag along the front. So the soft collar now becomes a notification that the spine is not cleared. It is not a protective device. It never has been. It may work. So I might get 2 terms. I'll get 1 3-year term, and then I can apply for another contract. So I could possibly be here for 6 years. What am I interested in? I think emergency medicine is changing. I don't think we've realised it. So our traditional view is that emergency medicine and general practice are on a continuum. That general practice sees the less acute, emergency medicine sees the more acute. And clearly there's an overlap in the middle, depending on where you are. I think it's gone. This is no longer the model of how medicine is. For lots of reasons, general practice has moved into chronic care. They're funded better for chronic care than they are for acute care. They don't do it very much. It's very expensive to manage acute care. So I think what's happened is, without us realising it, they've separated these streams out. General practice now deals with chronic care. ED deals with all acute care. So I don't want to hear any more the complaints. Why did this person not go to their GP for the splinter in their toe? The splinter in their toe is an acute problem. Emergency medicine will deal with it. If it's a chronic splinter in the toe, go to your GP. Now, we're not telling people to do this. They are making their own choices. They're well in front of us on this one, and yet we still haven't faced up, I think, to the fact that emergency medicine is no longer the emergency medicine that I started in. Chronic care is now general practice. Anything that's acute is emergency, and in that there will be a range of severities. And I think the ECI should be midwifing this type of change into the way we manage our services. It's particularly apparent with children. Kids now no longer under 2 almost always go to paediatric emergency departments. And when you think about it, of course they do. They don't have the training for it. We can't get our registrars to get paediatric training, and GPs have even less exposure, and yet we're asking to take the responsibility of a 2-year-old. They won't do it. They're always going to now increasingly come to emergency departments. So all of this hospital avoidance, it doesn't work. It's been tried everywhere. This is the ambulance of London where I've been working for 12 months. It's got someone intubated on the side and saying this is an emergency. This is all over the UK. When you say, does it work, they say, yes, it does work because the increase is 5% every year, and if we didn't have this, it'd be 10%, which I think is a fabulous argument. And New South Wales Health has tried the same thing. I think rather than try and fight this and give a message that we don't want you to come, yes, we do. We don't want you to come if you've got chronic care because we have services for you, but people already know what they're doing. The future for us will be EMR, and we're all battered babies with Cerner, but we need to engage with them, and the future will be better. In 6 years, I'm hoping someone will be explain to me what the difference is between draft print. It may take 6 years, and I really want to know what an encounter pathway is. So they're my big goals with Cerner over the next 6 years. The ECG must come into the electronic medical record. Look, we should really leave here and riot in the street, get a bat and go down to Cerner, and it's so outrageous, and I'm going to spend a lot of time to get this done. The ambulance put a huge lot of information into their system. It's electronic, it's Wi-Fi enabled. We don't see any of it in the EMR. It's wrong. I want to know what the odds were when the ambulance arrived on scene, and for it not to be happening on a heat-sensitive piece of paper, wrong, wrong, wrong. Our dream is up to date, goes. We want to replace it with the ECI website, clinical information. We're not quite there, but it's a huge amount of money which I want in my pocket or in ECI's pocket. Workforce is going to be a big problem. What do we do with CMOs? What do we do with registrars? How do we find jobs for them? Nurse practitioners are on the horizon. We're not managing it properly at the moment. It's something that ECI I'd like to be working with. I was particularly impressed in the UK. Every ambulance that arrives in the emergency department has a consultant talking to the ambulance officers. What a surprise. They know stacks. They've been in the house, they've spoken to them often for an hour. We do it with trauma. So with trauma, we say it's so important to talk to the ambulance officers, you've got to have them and have a handover, and yet someone with sepsis, they put them on the bed and disappear. So one of the things I'm very interested in doing is seeing how we can look at models of care. The ambulance should communicate with a decision maker, not put someone on a bed. The road trip, ECI should be doing rural visits. This is a very happy visit to Maxville, which is a wonderful satellite model of care with Alan Tankle. So our mission, avoid duplication. If there's something that you're doing that you think would be of benefit to someone else, please get ECI to host it so other people can use their time productively. The system is very complex. It wants to talk to clinicians. It doesn't know who to talk to. So the idea is you talk to us so that we get a reflection of what the community thinks. It's not just about what Michael Golding thinks. I only think about venous gases and the death of arterial. That's all that's in my mind. So you need to inform us so when we get asked, we can give an informed answer. And we should be a big brother for these small rural sites which are really a little, they're not lost, but they're doing enormous work and no one's really looking after them. That should be our role. And in 6 years' time, I need to find someone to replace me. I don't want too many people in 3 years' time when I'm up for a contract, but in 6 years' time, I will want someone to take over so this work doesn't stop. So thank you. The evaluation sheets, it's really important. Don't wait till the end of the day. Please keep doing it. If you can, put comments up on Slido so we can get some topics for discussion. And I'd like to introduce the next session. Kylie Stark, who was going to be with us, has had a family medical emergency and sadly won't be with us today, but Wayne Vandell, I'd like to